Hello viewers, welcome to our next episode of a series of lectures on elementary quantum mechanics. Today I wish to take up our first model system in quantum mechanics, that is particle in one dimensional box. And today's session has been designed as follows, that to begin with I will give you a small review of earlier sessions what we did earlier. Thereafter we will try to define the problem which we want to take up today, and thereafter we will formulate a Schrodinger wave equation for the system, then attempt to solve it. Having done that, we will try to work out what are the wave functions we obtain for the system, and towards the end we will try to sum up what we have achieved today. Okay. So, let me just make a small beginning by reviewing what we did earlier. If you recall that in the episodes so far, what we have done is, to begin with, in the first two episodes we discussed and demonstrated that the classical mechanics is inadequate in explaining the results of certain experiments. We took about 5 experiments to establish that part, and thereafter, as a consequence of that, we realized that the concept of quantization as proposed by Max Planck was quite worthwhile in kind of answering those questions which was posing challenge to our classical mechanics. Having done that, we took up 2 more consequences of quantum mechanical nature of elementary particles or microscopic particles, that is the wave particle duality and the uncertainty principle of Heisenberg. Thereafter, we did work out, in the previous episode you will recall that we formulated what is this wave mechanics all about. That is, we basically focused on the Schrodinger mechanics or the wave mechanics, and we looked into the different aspects of the postulates of Schrodinger mechanics. Towards the end we saw how do we use this to describe the behavior of microscopic particles. So, that is what we have done so far. If I try to put it differently, what we achieved so far is we have done 2 things. One, we have seen why of quantum mechanics, number 1, that is what we did in about 2 episodes to begin with. And then thereafter, we did make a case for the wave mechanics, and then we talked about what exactly is quantum mechanics. Having done those 2 things, now we are equipped to take up the next our challenge, next task, so to say, that is, how does quantum mechanics work? So, that is what I want to take up today. That is, I want to take up one model system, that is, I want to take up the system that is of particle in one dimensional box. So, with the help of this model system, that is particle in one dimensional box, I want to put before you the way quantum mechanical systems are dealt with. That means, how do we use the Schrodinger formalism to describe the behavior of quantum mechanical systems, small particles, elementary particles, movement of electron, proton, atoms, molecules, and things like that. So, all these are big issues. So, I will make up a beginning with very simple system, a model system actually. So, we begin by defining our system, that is, what do we mean by particle moving in one dimensional box. What we are doing here is that I am assuming that the particle is confined to move only along x-axis. Okay. So, what we do is we erect 2 infinite potential walls at x is equal to 0 and x is equal to L. When we do that, and what we get is that essentially my one dimension, that is x dimension, gets divided into 3 regions: region 1 under 0, and region 3 when x is greater than L, and region 2 which is my box in question which I want to deal with, that is region 2, that is when x is greater than 0 and less than L. So, that is the way I will look at my box. And further, since I want to ensure that the particle moves within the box, I ensure that I assume that the wave that the potential energy of the particle is infinity outside the box in region 1 and region 3, that is V is equal to infinity everywhere other than within the box, that is at x greater than 0 and less than L. So, that is the box I want to work on. So, if this is the situation, I will just quickly recall for you that in the previous episode we worked out general steps for solving a typical problem in quantum mechanics, and the steps happen to be, that is, to begin with we will formulate a Schrodinger wave equation for the system in question. Thereafter, we solve the equation. In the process of solving it, we will try to apply boundary conditions. I'll elaborate on boundary conditions as we proceed further. Thereafter, when we apply boundary conditions, we come across the solutions of wave equation, that is, we get certain wave functions. Having got that, we try to normalize the wave functions, and that is actually our objective. When I am saying that we solve Schrodinger wave equation, our objective is to obtain normalized wave functions for the given system, because we remember that from the previous episode that the wave function contains all the information about a system. So, if I know the wave function, I know the system fairly well. I know the system, I am able to describe the behavior of the system. And then once I know the wave function, then towards the end we try to, once the wave functions are known, we can use it to determine the values of different dynamic variables. And that again we remember from the previous episode that we use appropriate operators for that. Okay. So, with this quick recall, let us try to make a beginning with our system. Now, our first step is to formulate Schrodinger wave equation for the system, and you would recall our Schrodinger wave equation is nothing but H psi is equal to E psi, where H happens to be an Hamiltonian operator, and psi is the wave function, E is the energy, and again psi is the wave function back. So, this H cap you would recall is an operator for total energy. That means, what is the total energy of the particle? And the total energy you would know that is made up of two components. One is the kinetic energy, second is the potential energy. In other words, in terms of operator concept, we can write it as that Hamiltonian, the energy operator, is equal to T cap, or the kinetic energy operator, plus potential energy operator. That means, if I have to formulate Schrodinger wave equation, what essentially I need to do is I have to formulate expression for H. Once I know H, then I have to psi etc. have to be found out by solving the equation. In other words, we can say that formulating Schrodinger wave equation essentially boils down to giving an expression to the Hamiltonian for the system. And if you recall that we said we mentioned in the previous episode that the Hamiltonian will depend on what system I am talking about, because every system will have its own kinetic energy terms, it will also have its own potential energy terms. Okay. So, with that in mind, let us go further, and we will also try to recall for you that if I have to write the quantum mechanical operator for a given system, because right now my objective is to find out what is Hamiltonian for my system here. For Hamiltonian, I need to find out what is the kinetic energy operator, I also need to find out what is the potential energy operator. And to that extent, let me just recall for you that to write any operator in quantum mechanics, what you have to do is we have to look for the property I am talking about. We have to see that we write a classical expression for the property. Say for kinetic energy, I can write as kinetic energy is equal to half mv square. So, that means I write the classical expression in terms of the coordinates of system, time if need be, components of the angular momentum and things like that. Having done that, we try to substitute the quantum mechanical analogues of these classical terms, and that gives us a quantum mechanical operator which we make use of in defining our Schrodinger wave equation. Okay. Let me just demonstrate it to you. Now, for this system particle in one dimensional box, I have to find out expression for my Hamiltonian, that is a total energy operator, which in turn is made up of two components, the kinetic energy component and the potential energy one. Let me make a beginning with the kinetic energy. Now, the kinetic energy, since I am confining my particle to move only along x dimension, so it will be half of mv x square. That means I am just ensuring that the particle moves only along x axis. I can just multiply and divide by m, so I get an expression of this kind, 1 by 2 m square vx square, or I can substitute mvx by px, that is a momentum along x axis. So, this gives me expression as 1 by 2 m px square. So, that is a classical expression for kinetic energy. The next step, the obvious step is that I have to substitute the quantum mechanical operator for momentum px. Okay. When I do that, so what I find is that the kinetic energy operator happens to be 1 by 2 m, and then this is my operator for my momentum along x axis, that is minus iota h cross d by dx. I substitute that, simplify a little, I get an expression that minus h cross square by 2 m d2 by dx square. It is a very simple procedure to find out the kinetic energy operator for particle moving in one dimension. Since the system is simple, our expression also is very simple. Having done that for kinetic energy, let me move further to look for what is the potential energy operator. Once I get two expressions for my potential energy operator, one when the particle is within the box and two when the particle is outside the box. So, this in turn leads me to two Hamiltonians, one for inside the box, that is the region 2 in my description of the system, and that is the Hamiltonian will be now the kinetic energy component, that is minus h cross square by 2m d2 by dx square, and the potential energy happens to be just 0. So, that is a simple expression I get for my Hamiltonian for particle moving within the box. And for outside the box, I will have Hamiltonian to be equal to, I just substitute my kinetic energy operator for, which is the same, and the potential energy operator is infinity. So, essentially having got two Hamiltonians now, which in turn means that I will have two kinds of Schrodinger wave equations, one describing the behavior particle within the box and two for outside the box. So, within the box I will have, I just my Schrodinger wave equation is h psi is equal to E psi, I just simply substitute the value of h we just worked out and I get is an expression here. I rearrange a little and simplify. So, what do I get is a very familiar expression, that is d2 psi by dx square plus 2me by h cross square psi happens to be equal to 0. This is a simple Schrodinger wave equation or simple equation which describes the behavior of particle moving in one dimensional box. Similarly, for outside the box, that is region 1 and 3, what you find is if I substitute in my Schrodinger wave equation, I substitute the expression for Hamiltonian and rearrange a little as before, what I get is an expression of this kind, that is d2 psi by dx square plus 2m by h cross square e minus infinity psi to be equal to 0. So, essentially what we achieved so far is we have been able to define our system, 1. 2, what we are able to do is we have been able to formulate a Schrodinger wave equation for particle moving in one dimensional box, and we have got two expressions, one for the particle moving within the box and second for the particle when it is outside the box. Now, the next step, obvious next step is that we have to solve this expression. Let us make a beginning by solving expression for particle when it is outside the box, that is simpler one. So, we will just rewrite our equation over here, we have got the expression I have just worked out. Now, what you see from here is that whatever be the energy of the particle, it is much less than infinity. So, I can ignore this term here, even this constant term 2m by h cross square also gets ignored in the process, and what you get is the expression d2 psi by dx square to be equal to infinity psi infinity. I mean psi infinity means I am talking about a wave function which describes the behavior of particle when the potential energy happens to be infinity. I rearrange that, I get an expression for a psi that is nothing but 1 by psi d2 psi infinity by dx square, that amounts to 0, which is fine, because essentially what it means is that psi infinity is equal to 0, that means psi, the wave function for particle moving outside the box is 0, which is what exactly we expect it to be, because what it means is the particle has 0 probability to be outside the box, that is what exactly we want, because we ensured that we defined our system in such a fashion that the particle is confined to the within the box. So, this result is very on the expected lines. Okay. But that is not what we are looking forward to. What we are looking forward to is how does the particle behave inside the box. That is what we want to solve now, and that is our main issue. Now, how do we go about it? We had the expression as follows: d2 psi by dx square plus 2me by h cross square psi is equal to 0. That is a Schrodinger wave equation we worked out about a few minutes back. We can rearrange that. If you do not understand this component, we can even skip that part, but basically this is the typical way of solving, because the Schrodinger wave equation is a typical second order differential equation, and the way these steps are written here, this is a standard procedure for solving such differential equations. So, we just rearrange that, and what you find is when I solve this equation with using a standard procedure for solving equation, I get two expressions, that is I get psi 1. That means basically I am sure that you have solved quadratic equations. When I have a quadratic equation, when you solve it, suppose a equation is say 4x square plus 3y 4x square plus 3x or plus 7 equal to 0, some equation we take. If we have a second order equation, we get two solutions to that. There will be two values of x which will be for which the equation will be valid. Or similarly here, since it is my second order differential equation, I will be getting two solutions to a equation, and the solutions happen to be, I call them as psi 1 and psi 2. What you find is they are a exponential iota h by h cross 2 me half x. It is simple, just a very trivial procedure of solving differential equation. So, what you get is you are getting two solutions here, and that is what we are looking forward to. We are looking forward to the solutions of Schrodinger wave equation which were formulated. But you would recall from our previous episode and also from what we just mentioned a few minutes back, that the wave functions what we get must satisfy the boundary conditions. That means they are just solutions of the equation or not, it is not sufficient for us, because there may not be the true solutions. So, what we do is we proceed further on that. So, our next obvious step is we have to ensure that these wave functions agree to or kind of accommodate our boundary conditions. And what our boundary conditions are? They are as follows. That is, if again from the previous episode you will recall that the wave function must vanish at the boundaries. So, that is my first boundary condition. That is, my boundaries are for this given system are, that is, this is my one boundary, that is x is equal to 0, second boundary is at x equal to L. So, at x is equal to 0, wave function must go to 0, and at x is equal to L, again wave function must go to 0. So, there are two boundary conditions which are to be enforced onto the wave function I am trying to look forward to. So, what do I do is I apply my first boundary condition, that is, at x is equal to 0, wave function happens to be 0. Let me see, does it happen to be so? I do it for the first wave function we got here, say for psi 1. When I do that, I just substitute, put the value of x is equal to 0 and say psi is equal to 0. What do I get is, I get a exponential 0 to be equal to, that means this is nothing but 1, that means a equal to 0, which in turn means my wave function is 0. That means the particle cannot exist in the box. Such a solution is not acceptable to us, because we know that the particle is in the box. That means the wave function cannot be 0. That means this wave function which we have got so far, which is a solution of a Schrodinger wave equation which we formulated, fine, but it does not confer to our first boundary condition. Let us see, does the second one do it? I do it for the second wave function, that is psi 2. When I do the same exercise, we find that again b happens to be 0. Another term means that psi 2 is 0, that is, which again means the same thing, that the particle does not exist in the box. Again, not an acceptable solution. So, we are in a fix now. What we did a lot of work on that. We formulated Schrodinger wave equation, solved it, and got two solutions to that, but we find that none of the two solutions kind of confer to our boundary conditions. The very first boundary condition they are not able to comply with. So, there is a way out. The way out is that from one of our theorems, simple concepts here, that is, if there are more than one solutions to a wave equation, and if they are the solutions of a given wave equation, any combination of them also is a solution to the wave equation. So, that is what we try to now bank on. So, what we do is, okay, we had two solutions, psi 1 and psi 2. We found that none of them is suitable for us. What we do is we make a combination of two. We create a new wave function psi by just combining two wave functions psi 1 and psi 2. Then see what happens. Does this combination agree with our boundary condition? Does it account for our boundary conditions or not? Let's check that. So, when we try that, our wave function psi now is, this is my psi 1, this is my psi 2. Okay. So, again I apply my first boundary condition to this wave function which I have now just created, which is the combination of two wave functions we have got earlier. When I do that, I find that psi is equal to 0, a exponential 0 plus b exponential 0, that means 0 is equal to a plus b, or another term means b is equal to minus a. That means if I substitute b to be equal to minus a or a is equal to minus b, either one of them, when I find is this wave function now psi, where a, this is psi 1 part here, for psi 2, for b I have put it as minus a. When I do this, now this wave function what I get now is a solution of my Schrodinger wave equation, and also it confers to the first boundary condition, because we know that the first boundary condition is acceptable will be accommodated if I substitute b equal to minus c. That means this wave function conforms to my first boundary condition. So, we are moving forward now, at least we have got a wave function which at least agrees with the first boundary condition, but it must also must also accommodate my second boundary condition, and that you remember my second boundary condition is that the wave function must also vanish at the other boundary, that is at x is equal to L, wave function must also go to 0. Let us see that. So, before we go into that, because this expression is slightly more complicated, we want to make it simpler looking, we can visualize it faster in a better way. So, what we do is we just make a simple substitution here. This is my expression for the wave function we just found to be accepting or to be conforming to our first boundary condition. What do I do is, if I look at this term here 2me square root x by h cross, this selection I can just substitute as z. When I do that, by this wave equation, which was very complicated one, starts looking simpler one, that is psi is equal to a exponential iota z minus exponential minus iota z. Simpler equation to deal with. We can make it even simpler, more familiar by making use of what is called as Euler's theorem. Euler's theorem, anybody who has done little of complex numbers must be knowing about it, that any e raised to power I z or I x can be written as a combination of cos z plus iota sin z. Similarly, e raised to minus iota z is equal to cos z minus iota z. I make use of this. When I do this, if I just subtract the second equation from the first one, what do I get? E raised to power I z minus e minus z equal to 2 iota sin z. Or in other words, I can write that the expression what we had here in the previous expression, we had e raised to power iota z minus e raised to power minus iota z. From this, I can just substitute that with 2 iota sin z. Why I am doing this is because trigonometry functions like sine, cos, etc., we are more familiar with them rather than the exponential functions like e raised to power iota z and all. Okay. So, we want to make it slightly more simpler, because that is the beauty of Schrodinger mechanics, that is it deals with systems which you are which are more familiar with, you are able to visualize them. Okay. So, we just make this substitution here. So, what we get is our wave function now happens to be c sin z, where c happens to be a constant 2a iota. A is here and 2 iota comes from here. Okay. Typical mathematical jugglery, we put back our z. When you substitute our z back, so what we get is, we get a wave function now. This is a mathematical trick here. We substitute that something, play around with that, substitute back the thing, so that we are not losing any content anywhere. The only thing is our manipulations of equation becomes easier. So, what is this equation now? This equation is the one which is a simplified version of the wave function which we got by combining two wave functions obtained by solving Schrodinger wave equation, and also ensuring that this combination agrees to or confers to first boundary condition, that is at x is equal to 0, psi is equal to 0. And now with this simplified version, we are equipped to impose our second boundary condition. Let us see what happens now. What we see is that we have an expression, there is a constant c multiplied by a sine function. When I put my second boundary condition, that is at x is equal to L, psi goes to 0, I substitute x by L and put psi to be equal to 0. When I do that, I get this expression. Now, this constant c cannot be 0, because if this is 0, then the wave function happens to be 0, which is not acceptable to us, which implies that the second part of it, that is sine 2m square root of 2me L by h cross, must be equal to 0. That is a very crucial thing. What it means is, and then we all know from our basic trigonometry that sine of any angle happens to be 0 when this angle happens to be plus minus of n pi. That is, the argument of this angle, the theta sine here, must be equal to plus minus n pi. That is the if this is true, then we say our second boundary condition is agreeable. We rearrange this, and what you find is that we arrange this one, just take a square, rearrange that, we get an expression as En to be equal to n square h square by 8 ml square, where n happens to have a value of 0, 1, 2, 3 and so on and so forth. This is a very, very crucial moment for us, because this is for the first time we are seeing the quantum number coming in here. The quantum number is right here. What we see is that when I impose my second boundary condition, we find that that can be done if and only if the energy has this expression, which in turn means is, if you just look at this expression, this is n square h square by 8 ml square. Look at h is a constant, mass of a particle is constant, length of the box is a constant. So, this all is constant. That means energy is proportional or it's a multiple of a constant term over there. That means energy has only certain discrete values. If I put n is equal to 0, energy is 0. We will talk about that little later. N is equal to 1, it has got 1 times this energy. 2, it is 4 times this, and so on and so forth. That means the particle can take up only certain energies if it is confined to the box in one dimension. So, that is a very crucial moment for us. Okay, we will elaborate more on this when we proceed further in the next episode, but right now let me just try to correct it a little. Out of this outcome we have got, that is n can have a value of 0, 1, 2 up to infinity, we find that n is equal to 0 is not acceptable, because the moment I put n is equal to 0, energy becomes 0, my wave function becomes 0, that means the particle cannot exist. So, we modify our expression and say that energy En for particle moving in one dimensional box is n square h square by 8 ml square, where n has a value of 1, 2, 3 and so on and so forth. Now, you remember that when we have imposed our second boundary condition, we got the following condition, that is 2me square root L by h cross must be equal to plus minus n pi, and if we substitute this back into our wave function, where wave function was this. When we do that, we find that our wave function now becomes the following, that is, it is plus minus c is a constant here, sin n pi by L x, where n is equal to 1, 2, 3. So, what is this? This is the wave function which is a solution of our Schrodinger wave equation and also confers to our both the boundary conditions, that is the boundary condition number 1 and 2, that is the wave function goes to 0 at x is equal to 0 and x is equal to L. So, we have been able to achieve what we targeted for, that is to solve the Schrodinger wave equation and get suitable wave functions. In the next episode, we will take up the meaning of these wave functions, what do they mean, how do we look at them, what do they convey to us and so on and so forth, and then how much information we can get from them. Okay. Let us now quickly summarize what we have done today. What we have done today is that we started with recalling what we did earlier, and thereafter we defined our problem for today, that is the particle moving in one dimensional box. Thereafter we formulated a suitable Schrodinger wave equation for the system and then attempted to solve it. And in the process we ensured that the equations we get, the wave functions we get confer to our boundary conditions, and in the process we got two things. One, the wave functions which confer to the boundary conditions and other solutions, and also we got an expression for energy. In the next episode we will continue from here and try to normalize the wave functions first, and thereafter try to visualize how do they look like, what do they convey to us, and also we will read more into the expression, energy expression, what is the meaning of that, and towards the end probably we will take up one simple application of particle moving in one dimensional box.